I want you to understand something today. As we go through this text of Scripture, yes, it is applying to the deacon office. But there's one thing that I want you to see. There's nothing in this list that should not apply to all Christians. Something that really bothers me is when I hear people say, well, yeah, of course the pastor and the deacons are supposed to have this level of living, but because I'm not a pastor or because I'm not a teacher, I don't have to have those same requirements. And I'll tell you right now that that's not what the Bible teaches at all. The Bible tells us that we are to take off the old man and put on the new man. And that in doing so, that we are to follow Christ in all the ways that He lived. And there's not two separate rules or two separate classifications as Christians. You see, I and Sam or anybody else who's a deacon or a pastor, we are Christians first and foremost. That the pastor, the elder, the deacon, or whatever position is what they do, but they're still Christians first and foremost, and so we see this coming together. So for example, in Ephesians chapter 4, we see that God gave these different leadership positions for what reason? To equip the saints for ministry. If you're a saint this morning, say yes.
Yes.
If you're not sure if you're a saint, look at me with a question mark in your face. Okay, I see them. All right, a saint is one who is a Christian, one that's fallen, or who is following Christ, not somebody that's perfect. Somebody says, well, I'm not a saint, I'm nowhere near perfect. Well, I'm not either. The fact of the matter is, I'm still a follower of Jesus Christ, and I am a saint because of that reason. So the song, when the saints go marching in, he's talking about those who are followers of Jesus Christ. I want to be part of that number. Okay, we already read a few minutes ago. If your name is not written on the Lamb's Book of Life, then you are going to hell, and I don't want to be part of that number. I want to be the other number. Right? That's what we're talking about here. So these principles that we see this morning, don't just go through this message this morning and say, well, okay, this is all about the deacon position. It has nothing to do with me. It does have something to do with you, indeed. Verse 8 of 1 Timothy chapter 3. Deacons likewise must be dignified, not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine, nor greedy for dishonest gain. Now we will go through these verses one at a time or as a group, but starting with this first one, I want you to notice this morning the word dignified. When he says, I want you to be dignified, he means serious in mind or character, not silly and flippant about important matters. Now, I'm going to tell you something. One of the things I love about our church is the fact that we do have a lot of fun when we're together.
Amen.
We laugh, we cut up, we pick at each other. When it's all in good taste, we understand that there's a time to laugh and there's a time to be really serious. And we can tell the difference between the two. And so when you think about this, a deacon as well as a Christian should be dignified so they can understand there is a time to love, to laugh, and to enjoy. There's also a time to be very serious about what's going on around us.
Amen.
We see the idea of being not double-tongued, or the person that's saying one thing to one group and something different to somebody else. Listen, the day will always come, those two groups will come together. Now what are you going to do? So for example, if I was talking to this side and I told y'all one thing, but then I told you all something different, and then y'all come together like, wait a minute, you told us this, but now they're saying you said the other thing. This idea of double tongue means that a person, a deacon or a Christian, is supposed to say the right thing at all times, regardless who's around. Not changing to fit in with the crowd that they're in. And as Christians, and especially this day and time, with all the stuff that we're hearing on the news, we need to be consistent in what we're saying.
Amen.
We can't have this, okay, it's wrong for you to do it, but it's okay for me to do it. That's wrong. That's hypocritical. We need to be solid in this. Now, on your sheet, I have given you a series of questions from a book that Sam and I have looked at together as far as the questions in here, dealing with qualification, observation type questions about a deacon. Does this person follow this type of behavior? For example, does the potential deacon have a reputation for keeping his word? And again, this should apply to every one of us.
Yep.
Every one of us should keep our word.
Amen.
You know, we get into this contract talk. You know, you go someplace to buy something, they want you to do a contract and sign your name, all that stuff. There were days before, and it should still go today, that a man as good as his word. Amen. If he says it, he's going to do it. Period. Every Christian should be like that. We should not be telling one person one thing and then not doing it. Do they speak consistently to different parties? Again, not being hypocritical, but saying the same thing no matter who's around. Do they speak the truth in love? And are they able to demonstrate the ability to stand in the gap between conflicted parties and serve the need of both parties? Are they trying to be peacemakers and mediators, instead of changing and choosing sides and trying to make it worse? In verse 8, you also see they're not addicted to much wine. In the Southern Baptist Convention, there's a lot of discussion about this. There's some churches that are very conservative, there's some that's very liberal. You look at Romans chapter 14, verse 21, though, it said it is not good to eat meat or drink wine or do anything that causes your brother to stumble. When we think about pastors and elders and deacons, these types of positions, then we hold to this idea that it is important that we make sure that we are living a lifestyle that is not leading somebody else to look at us and say, wait a minute, time out. I didn't think that was right.
Amen.
You see, not greedy for dishonest gain. That a deacon and a pastor and an elder, as well as all of us as Christians, should do what is right. We should have integrity. Integrity, looking out for the better of all and not just for self-gain. Not doing things to gain power or leverage. Not doing things to say, wow, look at me. Not doing things so that you will receive special treatment. And so you ask these questions, do they drink alcohol? Do they do these kind of things? And again, please understand me. Here's the point. I made this a few weeks ago. We were talking about the sins that we saw in the fruit of the Spirit and the fruit of the flesh. How those two were contrasting. And one of them was talking about the drinking aspect. And I said, how many of you would be shocked if you saw me someplace at a restaurant with a beer in my hand? And almost everybody raised their hand, right? The point of the matter is this. We just have this certain expectation. Here's the point. If I had something in my hand that you thought I shouldn't have, and you're like, wait a minute, time out. Why does he have that? Because I thought he was holy and the leader of the church and everything else. Now you've got this hypocritical thought going on, and it causes that person to say, well, if the church is full of hypocrites, I don't want to go because I can get that at home. So we have to be very careful what we do. Listen, we are broken vessels, carrying a precious message of Jesus Christ. There's an old saying, you may be the only Bible that somebody ever reads. You've got to be careful how you live before others, because they will watch you and say, wait, time out. If that person is a Christian and they're acting like the world, then why should I ever think about becoming a Christian? Some people say, well, listen, I have my religious freedoms. Well, Paul said, I will not let my freedoms become a hindrance to somebody else. He said, all things are lawful to me, but all things are not expedient, or all things are not wise to do. And so you go through the questions there and you see some more. Do they have the ability to be generous and self-denial? Are they full of greed? You know, do they encourage others in generosity? Or do they foster selfishness? Do they demonstrate pastoral care? Do they pray for each other? Do they help lead people to Christ? Or are they too involved in their own world? You know, are they dishonest in their dealings? And what's their idea about wealth? Are they greedy? Or are they content? The Apostle Paul said in Philippians, for example, I've had all and I've had none, and I've learned to be content. What's he saying? As long as I have Christ, nothing else matters.
Amen.
Look at verse 9. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 9, it says, they must hold the mystery of the faith with a clear conscience. This idea of mystery, Paul liked that word. You know, we all have these words we use all the time, right? Well, Paul uses this word mystery a lot. If you look at the text here, you see in Romans 16:25, he talks about the mystery that was kept for the secret. You see in 1 Timothy 3:16 the mystery of godliness. You see in Colossians 1:27 the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you. You see in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 4, the mystery of Christ. We see in verse 6 the mystery that the Gentiles are fellow heirs. We see in Colossians 4 the mystery of Christ. In 1 Corinthians 15, he talks about a mystery, how that we will be called up together with those in the twinkling of an eye. He loves this word. But I want you to understand, the gospel is a mystery, especially to those who are outside of Christ. They call it foolishness. They call it everything else but what it is. They don't understand it. And even those of us who are in the faith, as we study God's Word, there are so many questions that come up. How does this work? And how does this fit together? And what does it mean when this happens? And how does this tie to something else we read earlier? And as we learn God's Word, as we read God's Word, we start learning more about it. We start seeing things we've never seen before. And let me tell you something, by the way, you won't like everything that you see. Because we see it from our own perspective. So, for example, the passage we just read a few moments ago about the judgment. When people think about those who are going to hell, we shouldn't like the idea that anybody's going to hell. Amen. And we should have a love for people to the point where we are willing to share the gospel with them and tell them about Jesus. Yeah, but if I do that, they may not like me. If I do that, they may stop being my friend. If I do that, it may cause me some problems. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be comfortable or obedient to God? We are to be obedient to the Father. When you see these ideas about this mystery, we see in verse 9, he's talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ in all these different aspects. And so we ask the question, is this person, this prospective deacon, does he have a credible profession of faith in his life? Is he really a born-again Christian, or is he somebody that's religious? There's a big, big difference. A lot of times I ask somebody, are you a Christian? They'll say, well, I'm a Baptist, or I'm a Catholic, or I'm a Methodist, or what it is. I'm not asking for the label. Okay? I'm not asking what label you worship under. I say one thing. Are you a Christian or not? John 3:3. Jesus said, unless a man is born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. He did not say what denomination you worship under. He didn't say, are you baptized or not? He asked one question. Are you a Christian or not? Yes or no? That's what God is looking at. When we look at Christians, we ask ourselves, are they giving evidence that they are truly saved? And the word that we use there is fruit. In fact, I encourage you to write that down. I want you to make sure you understand this. If you are a Christian, you should be bearing fruit in your life. There should be some evidence. I mean, when I go out walking, for example, a tree is a tree to me. I don't know all these different kind of trees. But I guarantee you, if I see a tree with some apples on it, I can say, hey, that is an apple tree, my friend. And if it's a Granny Smith tree, I'm going to find me some peanut butter and have me a good time. You are recognized by the fruit that you bear. If you are a Christian, then there's some evidence of it. That it's not just words. I can tell you this morning that I'm Chinese, but I don't look Chinese and I'm not Chinese. And I can tell you this morning that I'm 21, but you know good and well I'm more than that. But if I tell you I'm a believer in Jesus Christ and the works around me prove that I am, now you've got evidence. Amen. Does this deacon or this prospective deacon understand the gospel? Are they given to falling away from the faith? And let me tell you something. Every believer in Jesus Christ needs to be aware of that possibility. When I first came to Rolling Fork Baptist Church, I asked one question. And I still ask it today. The room that you're sitting in was built in 1860. Now, granted, it's been remodeled. But let this sink in for a moment. 1860. We are commanded by Christ to reach people for Jesus Christ. True or false?
True.
So here's the question. Why do we still fit in the same room? Are we inviting people to Christ? Are we inviting to church? Are we talking about Jesus Christ? Or have some of us fallen away from the faith? People, sometimes when I go to conferences, will say, well, what's your membership like? And I know what they're asking. They're asking two questions at the same time. How many's on the roll and how many's actually coming? Because that's not the same thing. We have people who say that they're Christians, but they're not bearing fruit, and they're falling away from the faith. They're not involved like they should be. And he's telling us here that we need to be aware of that. You see the other questions listed. Let's go on back to the text. Verse 10. Looking at 10 to 12 in the same package. And let them also be tested first. Let them serve as deacons if they prove themselves blameless. Their wives likewise must be dignified, not slanderers, but sober-minded, faithful in all things. Let deacons be each be the husband of one wife, managing his children and their households well. In that text, I want you to see the word tested. Here's where we get in trouble a lot of times as churches. A lot of times in churches, we'll need a position to be filled, and instead of finding the qualified person, we look at the person, are you breathing? Yes, good, you can have the position. Well, what do I do? Don't matter, just fill a position. We want a name there. That is the wrong answer. In our church bylaws, we are told that we are to have as many as 7 deacons or whatever the number is. But listen to me. The number doesn't matter if you don't have the qualified people. Now, by the way, let me say this. I am praying for more men to step up in their faith and say, I will serve God in whatever capacity that is. Look around the room right now. Look at the number of men versus the number of women. We're outnumbered. You take any church, if the women stopped coming, we'd be in big trouble. If the women stopped working, we would be in big trouble. Guys, we are to be the spiritual leaders in our home, but not only in our home, but also be spiritually plugged into the church and serving the way that God has wired us. He said, let them be tested first, then let them serve if they prove themselves blameless. This afternoon we'll be voting on Sam being a deacon at Roland Fork Baptist Church. And let me tell you something. For the last year, we've been discussing this very heavily. And we've been very patient. And he said, look, I don't want anybody to think I'm in this for the name of the position. I'm already doing the stuff anyway. And he is. He's been very faithful to me, very faithful to the church. Let me tell you something. He is very valuable to me, and I thank God for him.
Amen.
Thank you for your partnership in the gospel.
Thank you, Greg.
You see, the problem is sometimes we get too big of a rush in putting somebody in position, and then we regret it later. Paul says here, let them be tested. And then their wives not being a problem to the church as well. And then he says, let the husband be the husband, or let the deacon be the husband of one wife. Now, I'm not taking the time to get into this morning, but in the next few weeks we're going to talk about marriage. I want you to look at that phrase there because there's different people arguing different points about this one. In verse 12, the husband of one wife. The actual wording here in the Greek is the husband of one woman. Write down John chapter 4. I'm coming back to this passage in a few weeks. I don't know how it's going to time out yet. But in John chapter 4, Jesus is talking to the woman at the well. And Jesus says to the woman, go get your husband. And she says, I have no husband. And Jesus says, you speak the truth because you have had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. And she says, I think you're a prophet. It's like, okay then. But anyway, the point of the matter is this. He identifies her current state. What the text here in 1 Timothy is saying is that this is a man who is faithful to his wife, a man who is a one woman. He's not out carousing with other women, but he is faithful to his wife and to his family, managing their children and their households well. But this should be all of us. Again, when you see these qualifications, this should be every one of us as Christians. I mean, if any of us who claim to be children of God are outside living a secret life like that, that's not the fruit we should be bearing as Christians. We are to be faithful to our spouses and faithful to our families. Let them be tested. In other words, give them some responsibility. Give them some opportunities to serve and watch them. And if they're faithful, then continue on. And if they're not, then pull back. Look at your questions here and the observations from Tabiti's book, Finding Faithful Elders. Is he a mature and growing Christian? Does he show confidence in the area of serving? Is there anything you can see as a possible disqualifier that would keep him from serving? And is the congregation supportive to him? When I preached the passage from Acts chapter 6, we saw what deacons were for. Yes, they share Scripture. Yes, they share the gospel. But the initial position of a deacon is a servant. A servant with a servant's heart makes a difference. A servant with an arrogant heart does not make a difference. When somebody says, I want to be a deacon so I can have a position, but I want to have that everybody looking at me kind of thing, that's the wrong kind of spirit. But when a man says, you know what, I want to serve God, I want to please God however He wired me, and if this is what He's called me to do, then so be it. I will serve, and I will do it to the best of my ability. That's what God's looking for. Verse 13. For those who serve well as deacons gain a good standing for themselves and also great confidence in the faith that is in Christ Jesus. You may be sitting here today and say, well, what's a deacon for anyway? We have a program called the Links. If you're one of the Links contact people, raise your hand for me. Okay? The Links is designed to help take place of the lack of deacons that we have. In other words, as you interact with each other, and you develop these relationships, and you pray for each other and everything that you're doing, you are helping fill a gap because up till today, we haven't had deacons for a very long time. Not because we decided not to, but because the ones that we had either resigned, moved away, or whatever they did. And so there's a big void there. This is what I'm saying. We need people to step up and say, I will serve God, and if that's what I'm called to do, then I will do it. And if anybody serves as deacon, what do? They gain a good standing for themselves, and I'm going to tell you something else, also for the church. Because the church benefits greatly when the deacons are in place and they're doing their job. I think I have a quote on your sheet there from his book. It says, the Lord has not established the office of deacon as an extra to the church. The office does not exist as some obsolete appendage. Rather, deacons serve the table of the Lord in order to facilitate the advance of the gospel, the health of the body, and the rejoicing of the saints. Deacons are indispensable in the Christian church. When I talk to other pastors and they say, well, how many deacons do you have helping you? And I say, well, currently I have none. And then last year at some point I began to tell pastor buddies, well, I have one that we are praying about and getting ready for. And I'm excited about that. Think about your home for a minute. You ever walk by the garbage can and it's still full and nobody's taking it out? And you're like, who did take the garbage out? Well, obviously you're one of them. Right? Who left their dishes in the sink? Who didn't do this? Who didn't do that? Who didn't change the toilet paper roll? In your home, you may have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 people at the most, as far as family members. Look in the church. It takes a lot of care to take care of all those people. God has given us different ways of serving. We have some guys in our church, for example, that are not deacon material because of how God's wired them. I understand that. We have some in our church that are wired that direction. Whatever it is that God has gifted you in and gave you the passion for and given you the ability to do so, you are to serve to the very best of your ability. And not say, well, somebody else will do it. Because you know what? Every time you walk by that trash can and say somebody else take the garbage out, it still gets full. There's a job to be done. And this morning I praise God that Sam has answered that call. And I pray that you will too. And maybe it's not being a deacon, maybe it's being something else in the church. Whatever it is, I pray that you will answer. God, I will serve you through the ministry of this church. Because I'm going to tell you something. The average number or average age of our volunteers is much higher than it should be. I'm very thankful for all of our volunteers, don't get me wrong. But if we're putting all the load on those who are the older in our congregation, what happens when they can't do it anymore? We have big problems. So this morning the invitation is two-way. First of all, as a Christian, ask yourself, am I living a life that's opposite what we just read this morning? Likewise, if you're not a Christian, maybe you realize through God's Word that you're living in sin and God is calling you to be saved. Whatever's going on there, ask you to take care of that today. But the second part of the invitation is this. I'm asking you to pray for our church because we need people to step up. We have so many opportunities. Rhonda mentioned the ballpark a while ago. New Haven has given us a lot of opportunities to serve and make a difference in this community. We have ministries at the high school. We have ministries at the local school. We have all kinds of stuff going on. God has given us so many opportunities. The question is, do we have the personnel to follow up all this? So I'm asking you to step up and say, I'm ready to go. Plug me in. Let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for everyone that's here. I thank you for our church family. Lord, I thank you for those you have brought together to serve in this location. And Father, I pray for those who have been reluctant so far to step up for whatever reason. Father, that they would see what needs to be done. That they would see the need for more volunteers to carry out the business, to carry out the ministry of Rolling Fork Baptist Church. Father, if there's anyone here this morning that's not a Christian yet, Lord, please save them. Call them to you. Help them to respond and say, yes, I need you, Lord, please forgive me. Help us to serve you this day. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you please stand?